Hi, welcome to the video. So today we're talking about making New Year's resolutions, or if it's not New Year's, just a resolution any time of the year. Basically, we're going to resolve to improve, and we're going to show you, or talk about different ways you can do that, and set goals to make yourself a better guitar player in the coming year. So one thing I'd say is don't make resolutions that you're probably going to fail at. So you can make general goals, which are more specific, and then the resolution should be something you know you can succeed at. You just have to put the work in. So for example, if you only practice one day a week, you might say, well, I want to be a lot more serious. I'm going to practice 5 days a week. Okay, that's great, but the problem is you're probably not going to actually be able to do that consistently. I mean, that's a huge jump up. If you're practicing 4 days consistently, then maybe you can do 5. So if that first week you only practice 3 days, you might think, wow, I already failed my resolution the first week. But no, you did 3 times more practice than you normally do. So you actually succeeded. You did a great job. So you have to think about not as if I don't live up to this certain point, it's a failure. You want to just improve, and whatever level you're at, you then try and improve. I wouldn't necessarily, you can try and do 7 days a week, but you're never going to be able to succeed every week at doing 7 days a week. So that's more of a goal. The resolution I want you to make is the resolve in this coming year that you're going to practice more, or at least practice with more efficiency or higher quality practice. If you do either or both of those, you're going to improve. I say the efficiency because if you're already practicing a lot of hours, efficiency will be more important than more hours. If you're not practicing many hours, then efficiency is important, but adding hours is probably more important. So if it's your first year playing, then make a resolution that no matter what, you're still going to be playing at the end of the year. Because a lot of people will get frustrated, maybe not improving as fast as they would like, or it's harder than they think, and they give up. But if you're watching this video, I know you want to improve. So our resolution is to practice more and more efficiently. Okay. Now, the side goals you can set for yourself are anything else. That's the more specifics. That could be how many hours a day you want to practice, how many days a week. It could be memorizing the notes on the neck. It could be learning bar chords for the first time, learning diatonic scales across the neck. You have many other individual goals that you set for yourself throughout the year. So let's go and jump into how to make your practice more efficient and higher quality. Now I'm going to link a bunch of videos up in the corner, and those will appear in the description of the video. These will be related to the things I'm talking about, because in some of these things I'm going to breeze through a lot of things and give you the gist of it. It may be a minute, but I already did a 10-minute video where I give specific examples and a lot more detail. Okay, so one thing I'd say is, so you can think of practices 2 different ways. Your focused practice, when you're really trying to improve your technique, learn something new, and challenge yourself. That's where most of your gains will happen. Now, you also will need some just repetition. If you learn, for example, a C major scale, first you have to figure out, okay, how am I going to alternate pick this? Am I going to economy pick this? How am I going to do this? Which fingers am I going to use? All this stuff. That's part of when you're sitting there and really focusing on your practice, you're going to determine that stuff. But once you have to where you can pretty much play it perfectly at slow speed, then you need to gradually increase that speed. And that will happen with repetition. And when you start making mistakes, you slow it back down and you do more repetition till you can really do wherever it is without thinking about it. When you can do that, it just becomes a subconscious thing. That's when you can really play with speed. So those rote repetitions, I want you, if you have your guitar nearby, I want you to pause this, grab your guitar, and pick something. It could be just putting a chord down. Maybe you have trouble getting into that chord quickly. So you're just doing chord progression. You might be doing arpeggio, might be doing a lick, might be doing a scale, whatever it is that you can do in a rote fashion without having to focus 100%. Do that while you watch this video. This, again, is a way to increase your practice time, and that's one of our goals. Okay. Now, other things to think about when you're actually doing your focus practice is you want to really think about all the details. You want to carefully listen to what you're playing, so you can hear not just by doing clean notes versus something that's being muffled or buzzing or something like that because of bad finger placement. You also want to really listen to things like your interpretation of the piece. If you're, whether this is your own composition or you're playing someone else's music, because a lot of times the tab or standard music doesn't really show all that interpretation. So you might have to use some of your own or listen to the player if you have recordings of them and see how they did it. Because like one thing that usually isn't notated is dynamics, where you might have slight variations in your volume, or you might have a vibrato. This nice slow vibrato, or a fast vibrato, or a more aggressive one. So you can have these different variations, or you might just pause a note and sustain it without vibrato, or add vibrato at the end. So a lot of times this stuff is notated, or again, you might be writing your own music. You also might have to think about, okay, am I going to do alternate picking? Or am I doing the economy picking? Again, I'll link videos on this if you don't know what these are or not sure which you would prefer, where I go into a lot of details on this. You also might want to think about your fingerings. You notice, if you know a C major scale, you've practiced a certain fingering with that. But if you start doing slides and other things within it, your fingerings might change. That's not always the best fingering, the one you practiced, because you're practicing that for a very certain specific thing of just moving straight down the scale. If you're going to hit this note and then come back, there's no reason to go with this finger. If you're going to slide or jump positions, I might jump here if this finger is going to be used next, but I might jump here if I'm going up here. So where I'm going next determines what fingers I'm doing. So you want to think through that. You want to make sure you're consistent with that picking, whether it's sweep picking, economy, alternate, doesn't matter. And you want to have everything be efficient. So if you're watching, if I'm playing, I'm just improvising all this. So if I'm playing, you want your picking and your fingers efficient. You don't want them moving more than they need to. If you're going to be fast on this, that pick has to be a small motion. Okay. So, and to get that, you have to practice slowly and hold yourself accountable. If you're playing something and you're getting a lot of noise or missed notes, or maybe you're making them staccato and cutting them short when you're supposed to sustain them because you're picking up too early, that's where you really have to listen to your playing. So this isn't the time you want to be watching a video or TV. It's like the rote practice. You want to listen and say, okay, I really want these notes to sustain whatever speed I'm playing them at. So, be strict with yourself. A lot of people are in a rush to get faster on the lick. If a lick is at 120 metronome, they want to play it at 80 metronome or whatever. They want to play it at 120, but you have to get it perfect first, and then you can gradually get up to that. And whether you use a metronome to gradually increase, that's a good method. Or just try and play evenly and gradually move up. But the metronome gives you very specific goals that you can see, and you move it up in very small increments. Okay, another thing to think about is when you're practicing, you need to challenge yourself. So this can come in different ways. You can either challenge to improve your technique on this, play something more consistent, faster, with more accuracy, in time better, all this other physical, technical things. You can also play something you already know, maybe you know the C major, but you don't know all these other forms of C major. So you increase your knowledge and your fingerings, whether it's chords, scales, licks, arpeggios, by finding different ways to play them. One way to do that is if you know notes on the neck, you can figure out what notes are in the scale, chord, whatever, and then find those same notes somewhere else. Okay. You can also learn something new. So whether it's learning a song, a lick, any of that thing, but it has to be something that challenges you. If you're playing all open chords, like G, C, D, etc., learning a new song that uses those same chords just in a slightly different order isn't really challenging yourself. You need to do something that's actually you haven't done before or is difficult for you. So if everything you're doing is easy, whether that's something super hard, but for you it's easy, or something really easy for a lot of people, but for you, maybe it's hard. It doesn't matter what level you're at. If it's easy for you to do, you're not really challenging yourself on it. So challenge yourself to learn something new you haven't done before. A good thing to do is set goals of, say, okay, I'm going to learn something new every day or every week, or however, it depends how much you're practicing. And then try and hold yourself to it. And when you learn something new, write it down. Create a little journal of your ideas. And it could be an idea you pulled off a song you learned, or it could be an idea you improvised and liked. And it could be anything from a chord progression to a unique rhythm to a new arpeggio or something. Okay. Another thing, try and be consistent in your practice. Consistency is important, because if you skip a lot of days, then you're going to forget a lot of stuff you learned previously. You're going to have to go back and review it. If you learned out of a video, you might have to rewatch the video. If you learned out of a tab, you might have to look up the tab again. So that wastes your practice time, and practice time is precious. So if you can be consistent with it and practice more often, even if it's no more hours, but it's more consistent, and you're doing it every day for a half hour rather than every other day for an hour, it's the same amount of time, but you're going to have to do less trying to remember things you forgot in the off time. Okay. Another thing to think about, you want to practice as much as you can, so keep your guitar nearby. I keep my guitar in the room I do most of my watching TV, where I record these videos, so it's always actually within reach on a stand of the couch that I'm sitting on. And I also sometimes I keep in the living room if I'm out there. So I've got a couple stands put around the house, and I can move my guitar with wherever I'm going a lot of times. But you don't want it in a case. You don't want it under your bed, in a closet, because even if it's just in our room, the odds of you getting up and walking there to grab it and then coming back to play is a lot less than if it's sitting there staring you in the face 2 feet away from you. Then you just pick up and play it. And you can play for short periods of time. You might be, again, doing some rote practice while you're watching TV or something. It might be you're waiting for your dinner to cook and you just sit down for 10 minutes while it's cooking and practice. Or commercials come on TV and you just mute it and do some practice quick. So really try and maximize your amount of time. It doesn't have to be a structured memory. Sit down for an hour and practice. If you're a very structured person that needs that, that's fine. But it's perfectly fine to just practice it whenever you can. Don't limit your practice. Always practice as much as you can, and then if you need a structured hour set aside, that's fine too. Now, if there are times when you don't feel like it, there's always going to be times when you're just kind of burned out. You're maybe working a lot at your job. You're just tired physically or mentally, and you just don't want to practice. And on the one hand, that's okay. But on the other hand, I want you to try and do at least a few minutes a day. It doesn't have to be sit down and practice for an hour, but pick it up for a few minutes. Aim for like 5 minutes. If you really need to, you can set a timer, but I'd recommend against that, because here's the thing: once you start picking up and you start playing something, whether it's a song, whether it's improvising, whether it's scales, whatever, you're probably going to get sucked into that. And if you do, then you end up practicing a lot more than that. That 5 minutes might become 10, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, half hour. But even if it's only 5 minutes, again, that builds in that habit, that consistency of, I'm going to play every day, even if it's only a few minutes. So as much as possible you can do that. But on the other hand, if you miss a day because you're sick, you're on vacation, or you're just too tired and you just didn't want to play, that's okay. In the big picture, it doesn't matter, because you're going to be playing hopefully the rest of your life. So whether you practiced on Tuesday, January 2nd, whatever it is, 2 years ago, it doesn't matter anymore. What matters is we're consistent throughout the months and throughout the years, and that's what makes you better. So if you miss a day, don't worry about it. Don't stress about it. Just move on and say, okay, today I'm going to make sure I get my practice in. Don't let it start compounding into day after day of missing it. Okay, other things you can do if you don't have your guitar around, you're on vacation, you're at work, you're riding the bus to school, whatever, and you can kind of zone out and you're not doing something where you have to be like driving or something. I did a whole video on ways to practice without your guitar. So there's lots of visualization and mental things you can learn when you don't have the physical guitar to play. Now, I wouldn't recommend those as much when you have your guitar because you want to practice that physical aspect. You know, guitar is both mental and physical. So if you have your guitar, play your guitar. That gets your fingers moving. But if you don't have your guitar, you can think about, okay, what are the notes on the neck? And you can run through those in your head. Okay, on the A string, B is 2nd fret, C is 3rd fret, etc. You can run through that. If I'm at like the 5th fret, what are the notes if I go down this way? Well, it's A, and then it's D, and then it's G, and it's C, and it's E, and it's A. So you can think about mentally where those notes are. You can say, okay, what are the notes in this chord? And you can figure out, okay, that's C, E, G, C, E on it. Well, where else can I play that? You can find other fingerings for your chords, your scales, your arpeggios. You can go through what the different chords in each key is. You can do all this stuff in your mind that will help your playing when you don't have your guitar. Again, I did a video on that. You can check that out. If you're doing warm-ups, try not to waste time doing warm-ups that don't matter. If you do like the same warm-up every day for years, it's maybe physically warming you up and mentally, but it's really not making you better. Warm-ups, usually you're going to do something slower than your normal playing as you physically warm up. So that's a perfect time to do something that's difficult for you. If you're doing some sort of arpeggio where you may be having trouble with that, you can then just do those repetitions at slow speed until you get them ingrained in your head. So that can be your warm-up. Challenge yourself during your warm-ups to something that you maybe don't know very well or still need reps on. Okay. Side goals you can make in addition to the broad, if I'm just going to resolution, if I'm going to improve, is you can make specific ones of, say, how many hours a week you want to practice, or you can say, I want to try and learn something new every day, even if it's very small. Or you can say, I want to memorize all the notes on the neck, or I want to learn diatonic scales across the whole neck, or learn extended chords. Whatever you're trying to learn, that can be your individual goals that you're working on for the week, for the month. So make smaller goals, but mostly if you just keep focusing on improving and hold yourself accountable to your quality practice, and not just getting lazy and sloppy and doing what's easy, you will keep improving. Check out some of my old videos. I've done about 160 videos on a ton of different subjects on it. So if you want to learn arpeggios, I've done dozens of ones on different arpeggio fingerings. I've done many different ways to do scales, and I did a video on 22 levels of scale playing that you could practice the ideas in that for the rest of your life. Honestly, I did this video on the overview of what to practice. So if you're not sure what to practice, check out the one on the overview. I've got a page of typed stuff you can download. All the tab and stuff for my videos can always be downloaded for free on my Patreon page. So there's a link in the description on that. There's over 100 pages of tab that you can download for free. But like the 22 levels of scale practice, you could practice that for the rest of your life. The concepts in that, the typed out overview for that is 5 pages long of typed ideas on it. And many of those individual ones I've got videos on of each of those levels. So anyways, I'm going to leave it at that. Good luck with the practice, and just keep working at it and don't give up, and you'll succeed. Please like, subscribe, share. Thanks for watching.